know, like, marriage was supposed to be one way. No ups and downs. You know, like you see on the movies, you know. Because I expected a lot of things that just weren't going to happen. Things had to change one way or the other. So, I was glad that I had somewhere to go to.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome. Last week, Say Brother aired a powerful film about wife beating called To Love, Honor, and Obey. Viewer response was so tremendous that tonight's program on Women and Our Power was planned as a follow-up. But the incidence of abusive crimes against our nation's women is so alarming that the notion of women having any power at all may be little more than wishful thinking. Throughout history, laws protecting animals and criminals were enacted long before our lawmakers thought about safeguarding the rights of women. Conservative estimates put the nationwide figure for battered women at 1 million plus. My name is Beth Deere, and my guests tonight are Jenny Yee, who is a staff psychologist at the South Cove Community Center on the adult team, Jane Andrews, who is a former chair and now an executive board member of 9 to 5, the organization which advocates the rights of women workers. Next to Jane is Elsa Montano Arroyo, a community education organizer for Casa Myrna Vasquez, a shelter for battered women. And next to Elsa is Carolyn Ramsey, who is the director of Respond Incorporated, a shelter for battered women. Together, we'll take a look at the problem and hopefully pose some practical suggestions for helping women to better realize their collective power. Before I begin tonight's program, though, I'd like to mention that we had another guest scheduled, Beryl McLaughlin of Boston's Urban League, who was going to add to our conversation with regard to working with senior citizens who want to re-enter the workforce. Unfortunately, Beryl couldn't be with us, and we'll pick up on that topic later on. Okay, ladies, before we get going, I want to read what I found to be a shocking statistic. 25% of all U.S. couples have had a violent episode, ranging from a mere slap to a physical beating, and that 16% of all U.S. couples do so regularly each year. Do you find that statistic shocking, and if not, why? Can I start with you, Jenny?
I don't think I'm aware of the statistics, although I think that it's probably underreported. I think that different racial groups in the United States do not have statistics. For instance, in the Chinese community, we have absolutely no statistics. I think that the public isn't aware of this situation as well. We are workers that provide services to the community, and yet we are not aware of the numbers.
So you say that that statistic of 25% of all U.S. couples having some form of domestic violence is understated. Do you find that to be the case in your community, Elsa?
The last statistics I read was that the FBI report that close to a half of married women have some form, yes, of wife abuse.
Jane and Carolyn, you agree with that?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Go on to say that I don't know how this works out in numbers, but those statistics also go on to say that 1 in 4 marriages across the nation experience some form of abuse.
And I would agree with what Jenny said, that it's probably underreported. Even that FBI statistic may be on the low side of the scale, that people just aren't speaking up about it.
Yeah. Well, I know that Boston City Hospital reported that over 70% of all their assault victims are women who have been attacked in their own homes. Now, Carolyn, you deal with this problem on a regular basis as a director of a shelter for battered women. What story do the women give you when they come into that shelter? Why are they so victimized?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, and I think for every woman that comes in, there might be a different answer. Some of the things, maybe sort of general things that happen, could range from husband losing the job to alcoholism to frustrations, outside of the home, to mental problems, a whole range of things that women say why they get battered.
Clearly, we're 5 women sitting here. Do we feel like victims? I know that I don't. Jenny, how about you?
I think that you can feel like a victim in stages. That is, you may start off feeling a vague sense of helplessness when you begin to realize that something is going on with you as a woman. And I think as you gradually proceed in life and you begin to see more and more women who are also in the same situation, then you can begin to put a label to it, and maybe I think all of us as women have felt like a victim at one time or another.
Well, I want to point out here that domestic violence is not the only form of abuse that is perpetrated on women. And Jane, I'm going to ask you to speak to that because there's quite a bit of abuse in the workplace, which is 9 to 5's focus.
Probably the most commonly discussed form of abuse in the workplace is some kind of incident of sexual harassment, where a woman is harassed by a boss or perhaps even by a peer in the workplace, and the harassment takes on many shapes and forms. Ultimately, it can lead to a woman losing her job or being fired or not being promoted because she decided not to take on the sexual favors that were being offered to her for the sake of securing her job, so that it puts a woman in a very precarious situation. She either complies with her boss's wishes or she's out on the street looking for another job.
Why is it so difficult? Because I'm sure that our viewers as well as ourselves have heard much of this before. But why is it so difficult for people to believe that this is really true?
Well, I think any incident that happens to a person, any violent incident, whether it's being battered or abused in the workplace or whatever, you always think it will never happen to you. You read about it and you don't necessarily know the people involved, and you think, well, that won't happen to me. I know better, I can prevent it, I'm somehow immune from this. And then until it does happen, you don't really know or really think you understand what's going on out there.
Well, education plays a very important role as far as our understanding of where we fit into our society. Now, Elsa, you showed me a book before we came out here to do the show tonight that had a very interesting line in it, and I'd like you to take that out and read that for our viewers. Now, you said this is a textbook that was in use some 10 years ago?
Yeah, some time ago in the school.
Now, this is the first 2 pages, and the line reads what?
Family will live in this house. Who will work for the money to live in this house? Father will work for the money to live in this house.
Okay. So that's one instance of continuing a myth that the father is the sole support of a household. In fact, one of the statistics that I got was that only 10% of American households at this point in time consist of a working father, a homemaking mother, and 2 children, the ideal family. That, in fact, the majority of American households are not comprised of that perfect whole. Now, Carolyn, the women that come into your agency as a shelter for battered women, what is their family situation like? Is there any key to the problem in that?
As far as the family makeup, whether father's home or father's not home or whatever, in most cases, father is present in the family. In some cases, or does not necessarily have to be a husband and wife relationship. Why, for women coming in there, most of the people are low income.
Okay. Well, that's another one of the myths that I wanted to bring out tonight, the fact that domestic violence only takes place in low-income homes. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
No, I didn't. I should have gone on to say that I didn't mean to say that that's only the people that come in. The people that generally come to services are low-income people because their resources for either private psychologists or counselors are limited. But any statistics will bear out that the range of domestic violence, transcends all class lines, economic levels.
Okay.
And there is another data that says that the women who go to shelters or to public services sometimes are from middle class or middle high class, but they are housewife. They don't work outside, and they don't have the money to go outside to any place. In other cases, women normally don't go to a shelter.
So women from upper income families don't tend to come to a shelter for help or to go to counseling for help. Jenny, in counseling women who have been victimized in one way or another, what common threads have you found in the stories they tell you?
I think it's very hard to piece together, but I think that for Chinese women, there are specific cultural issues that are common, and that is that in a Chinese family, the woman is expected to hold the family together, so that even if the husband is in the wrong and that he may physically or mentally abuse her, that's very difficult for her to complain and to say that he may not do that. The culture strongly supports that the women should keep the harmony in the family, regardless of the husband's behavior towards her. And I think that that cultural tendency tends to prevent the women from seeking help because they believe that they should remain in that situation and that they must be responsible in some way for not maintaining some harmony. And it's very difficult to break through that feeling, and it takes a lot of counseling to help them realize that there is another way of looking at it.
Are the families supportive once you start counseling that individual?
It's very different in different cases. Some of the husbands do participate. In other cases, the husbands refuse to. And in other cases, I have had to help women get a divorce and to leave the home. They vary, and it depends on the particular strengths that each individual women have within them, as well as what they can learn from coming to a counseling center, as well as utilizing other women as supports.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'd like to let our viewers know that we've pulled together a list of women's support agencies, and you may want to get out a pad and pencil and jot some of them down for future reference. I'd like to let our viewers know that our telephone lines are open tonight. You may call us and ask questions of our guests. Please do. The number is 491-0340. 491-0340. Okay, ladies, several things still continue to puzzle a person who has not been victimized in such a way, someone who has more or less been brought up in a harmonious family setting, maybe in a very small town somewhere. Not that small towns are not prey to domestic violence. But last week when we watched the film about wife beating, several men in the area when we watched the film said, why didn't they leave? Why didn't they just get out? Why did they take it? Can anybody speak to that?
There are many reasons. One of the reasons is many times women don't want to leave the children. Move out with the children is hard for them. It's very hard. Right now, housing vacancies in Boston is about 1%. Find an apartment is very, very bad. There is other reason that we talk about a lot is religious reasons. Minister and priests still say, you should help your husband, you should try to keep the family together, you should try to hold up, support, and do whatever you can. And even family pressure and economic pressure. Women go out and they don't find a job.
We have a call. Hello, you're on the air. This is Say Brother. May we have your question, please?
I have a question. I'd like to know what services are available for men who know they have a problem around domestic violence.
Okay, we couldn't really hear that very well, but I think she asked what services might be available for men who have problems with domestic violence. It's an excellent question. Carolyn, I'll start with you.
Okay, there is one organization that I know of in the Boston area, and I don't know the number right now, but it's called Emerge, and it's a counseling center run by men for men who have problems with rage and violence.
Emerge,
Emerge,
okay.
and it's in Boston, the Boston
Emerge
area.
Is the name of that men's organization. Okay, we have another call. You're on the air. May we have your question, please?
Yes, I'd like to know why the court systems don't help women out when they go to the court with these problems.
Did you hear that? I missed Carolyn.
Well,
okay.
The question was why the court system doesn't help women out when they go to court, I guess for around domestic violence problems. And recently there's been a law in Massachusetts called the 209A, which allows a woman to petition the court for a restraining order from her husband to order him to stop the violence and sometimes to leave the home. this is a relatively new law to Massachusetts.
As many of the domestic violence laws are.
For sure. And I think we need a lot more sensitizing and a lot more training and a lot more people in the courts to assist the women in this.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. The number again, if you'd like to call us, is 491-0340. Picking up on that last point about legislation, Jane, I'd like to ask you, because 9 to 5 has had some success at this. How'd you go about that?
Well, it's a sort of a combined effort. You try to identify a target of some kind and then work at it as from many sides as you possibly can, so that you work sort of as a public action. You bring the issue to everybody's attention, not to just the people concerned and the source of the problem, but the community at large. You deal with other community agencies in applying pressure to the area where the problem is. You work to try to get legislation passed. That's a hard job to do. It's just a matter of sort of attacking at all sides where the problem is and try to maintaining that energy to do it. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people. But the secret is, I think, is many people coming together to work on solving the problem. One at a time, and you just get knocked over. We know. It's like feeling like a bowling ball's coming down an aisle at you, and you get knocked over.
That's good. Thank you. We have another call. You're on the air. May we have your question, please? Hello? May we have your question?
Yes, I wanted the number on that sexual harassment at work.
There is an organization in Boston called Sexual Harassment. It prevents women from, you know, if you are having sexual harassment problems in the workplace, that you can call. Are you familiar with that?
I know the agency, but I don't remember the telephone number.
Well, why don't we give the 9 to 5 number?
Right.
Okay.
You can call the 9 to 5 office in Boston at 536-6003, and you could probably get a little bit of counseling there, and they can refer you to that particular agency for that kind of problem.
Okay. We have another call waiting as well. You're on the air. May we have your call, please? Hello, you're on the air. May we have your call?
Hold on a second, please. You may be on the air. Hold on a second, okay?
Hello?
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 Yes.
Yes, I would like to know what kind of help would they give for a teenager who is involved with the mother and father's disagreements, but neither parents want to go for the help, but the teenager is of age and wants the mother and father to get help. Is she eligible? Is she able to come to people and talk to you all? And would you all listen to her and help her out?
Excellent question. We haven't really discussed some of the side effects of family domestic violence. Maybe I'll start with you on that, Elsa. Would you deal with, are teenagers welcome at counseling agencies if they're in a situation where the father and the mother are battling each other?
That's a hard one. I don't think there is any organization that specializes on teenagers. They always can call the shelter, and the shelters always give counselor to them. They also refer them to some social services outside the community.
Excellent. So while there's no agency that you know of that specifically deals with that, then in fact they would not get turned away from any counseling service. Jenny?
I just want to add that there is an organization that deals specifically with adolescents. That's the Department of Social Service, the Protective Service Agency, which handles abuse cases for families. So that if a child does have a problem, they can come to the Department of Social Service and Protective Service to ask for help, and then they usually get involved.
Thank you. We have another call, ladies. You're on the air. May we have your question, please?
I'd like to know how the agencies are funded that provide this service, and whether or not there is a fee for service.
Did you hear that question, Carolyn?
I guess the question was, how are our agencies funded, and is there a fee for service? I can tell you about Respond that we basically get money from the Department of Social Services with a small amount of our money from the city of Somerville. This money basically is sort of a skeleton money, and a lot of our efforts go into fundraising and private donations, etc. And I think that might be for all of us. And no, we don't have a fee for service.
Okay. And what about South Cove Community Center? Is there a fee for service there?
There is a minimum fee for service, and it's supplemented by third-party payments, Medicaid. But we do not have a special program for sexual harassment or battered women. It's part of the clinic.
Okay. Now, Jane, since your organization primarily advocates, you don't really counsel per se, is that correct?
We wouldn't call ourselves a counseling organization,
Exactly.
but if anybody calls up with a job-related problem, we can talk with them on the phone. Again, like the other groups, there's no charge. You can belong to the organization and there's a membership due, but that would be another
Okay. And Elsa, what about Casa Myrna?
Casa Myrna have a lot of money coming from private sources. There are churches involved, United Way, people, and we also have money from welfare department.
Okay. Is it enough money to meet the need of the problem?
No.
No.
Resounding no.
Resounding no. What do you see in the future as far as funding is concerned, given the doomsday threats that we're hearing now?
I think it's scary. It's scary for all of us. It's not good. No one knows for sure what our budgets are going to look like, whether there will be money allocated for the part of the proposal for Department of Social Services that's called Women in Transition. No one knows what that's going to look like at all.
We have time for just about one more call, and it's waiting. Hello, you're on the air. May we have your question, please?
Yes. I want to stand by my husband in the hope that eventually he will change his behavior. We have just started to go to marriage counseling together. Do the people suggest that it's fair for me to put a time limit on my situation?
Thank you very much. Excellent question. And Elsa?
Yes, I think so. Many couples has tried that, and if the man is willing, sometimes work. Sometimes we have the case that the women go to court and the judge ordered the man to have counseling. We have the experience that that doesn't work. When the man don't want to receive help, that doesn't work. But if the man went to, because they really want to, most of the time, that do help.
Okay. And Jenny, would you like to add anything to that?
I would agree with that. It's different in different situations, and you have to go by the mutuality of both people in order to deal with the problem.
Okay. And
just a quick ending, just the fact that two people are talking and are getting help for it, it's the right step.
Okay. I'd like to thank you all very much, and I'd like to invite you back at some point in our program. Summing up for our viewers, what do you think are the most important considerations to keep in mind if they find themselves in a situation where they're being harassed or abused or victimized? Jane, I'll go to you.
Well, in summary, I would say speak up. Don't be silent and continue to be abused in whatever form. Second of all, get in touch with as many people that can be problem solvers or help you to problem solve, because the more people who are involved in trying to solve the problem, the better the chances are in getting something to be improved. Okay. It doesn't always work, and we know that, but to be quiet and not reach out into the community, you will never solve your problem.
Okay, I have time for about one more suggestion. Carolyn, you look like you're ready.
Well, my suggestion or the word that I'd like to get out to women is that no woman need live in fear, and no woman deserves to be beaten, and for people to really understand that and believe that. And there are programs available to assist women in trouble.
Okay, thank you very, very much, ladies. At this point, Say Brothers series producer Barbara Barrow Murray, the staff, and interns wish to thank you all for your support over the past season. This year, we won a pair of the most cherished awards in the television industry, the Emmy. Two were presented to us on Saturday, December the 12th, at the 5th Annual New England Regional Emmy Awards ceremony. In the category of Target Audience Special, the award went to our dance special, Blues and Gone, a musical choreo poem celebrating the genius of black theater performers who have been victims of commercial exploitation, written and choreographed by Billy Wilson. The second award was for Best Target Audience Series, represented by In the Matter of Levi Hart. We wish to thank the Hart family for letting us into their home at such a difficult time in order that the injustice suffered by their son not go unnoticed. The following are some of the people who had a lot to do with making these awards possible. Good night.